What's up, everyone? I'm Joe Pompliano, and this is the Joe Pomp Show. Today, we're going to be talking about Deion Sanders and why he is potentially one of the most underpaid coaches in college football. So most of you probably know that Deion Sanders went to Jackson State. Before this, he was the coach there for 2 years. He went 23-3 during his tenure at Jackson State. He brought in a bunch of high-level recruits, and he turned that program around. So now he gets recruited to be the head coach at Colorado, which is obviously a step up at the Pac-12 level. Now, Colorado sucked, is the easiest way to put it. They went 1-11 last year. They got absolutely blown out by teams. They lost to Oregon by 40 points, USC by 40 points, Utah by 40 points, and Washington by 50 points. To put that into perspective, 10 out of their 11 losses last year were by 23 points or more. The team got absolutely blown out by majority, if not all of their opponents, and they won one game. So what does Colorado do? They fired their coach, and they go out and they hired Deion Sanders. Now, they paid Deion Sanders a lot of money. They're paying him $30 million over 5 years, which is more than Colorado's ever paid a football coach. And the director actually even said when they signed the deal at the press conference that they didn't have the money yet. Now, he said they're going to go get the money from boosters and other people like that, and they'll figure it out. But my argument is that this is potentially one of the greatest business deals for Colorado that we've seen in college sports. And let me explain. So on the field, Deion Sanders is already making a world of a difference. A lot of people are complaining online about what he's doing in the transfer portal and how he's basically treating these as free agents, right? And the easiest way to think about it is that the team sucked before, right? And college football has changed as a sport, right? It's no longer this amateur sport. It wasn't really before, but now it certainly isn't with the transfer portal and NIL. Now kids can enter the transfer portal. They can get recruited by other schools. The collectives at those schools can give them an offer, essentially telling them how much money they're going to get paid, whether it's legal or not, and they are going to get recruits that way. So Deion Sanders says, look, I don't have 4, 5, 6, 7 years to coach these kids up that aren't very good and make them winners. I have to get rid of them and bring in good athletic kids that can win me games today. So that's exactly what he's doing. If you look at their roster, he has already sent, these aren't kids that left on their own. Deion Sanders has told more than 40 kids to enter the transfer portal, saying you're not going to be playing here anymore. Go to the portal, try to find somewhere else to play. Only 20 out of their 83 scholarship players from last year are still on the team today. So this has been a completely different roster, and he's turning it over. And what he's doing is he's now recruiting 3, 4, 5-star recruits from other top programs like Florida State, Alabama. He got a kid from Old Dominion that a lot of other schools wanted. And he actually went on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, and he said, I have a list, and when it comes out, you guys are going to be surprised, because the narrative was at first that he was losing all these kids, that they didn't want to play for them, that they didn't want to play for Deion Sanders in Colorado, and he was losing them to the transfer portal. And that's just clearly not true. What we've seen is he's turning over the roster himself, he's telling these kids to leave, and he's trying to bring in better players to win games today. Now, the over-under, I think, for them next year is 4.5 wins. My guess is it ends up, somewhere around there, whether it's 5 or 6. The Pac-12 is not an easy division. You have USC, Oregon, Utah, Washington, Arizona, all these other schools. So it's going to be hard to win a bunch of games. But my guess is they obviously improve from one win. But more importantly, off the field, from a business perspective, he is going to make a world of difference. If you just look at their spring game, what happened there? They had 2,500 people show up to their spring game last year, and they gave away tickets. They didn't even charge people for it. They were giving away these tickets, and they only had 25 people show up last year. This year, in the snow, he sold it out. 45,000 fans. It was absolutely insane. There's a video on social media where they panorama the stadium. There was no one there last year. This year, it's full to the brim. Not only that, last year, there was only 50 media members credentialed for the event. This year, there was over 300 media members that had credentials for the event, and it was broadcast live on ESPN. Alabama's spring game was on ESPN+. Just think about that for a second. Alabama, ESPN+, their game was on. Colorado was on ESPN. Everyone wanted to see what was going on. It got a bunch of attention. I think it was ESPN's second highest rated spring game in over a decade. It was up 95% year over year from a viewership perspective. Amazing numbers. He's made a huge difference. Outside of just the spring game, though, if you look at ticket sales, they've already sold out of season tickets for the football team this year. It's the first time they've done that in 30 years. Merch sales on Fanatics are up 700% year over year. And they've added almost 1 million social media followers since he took over. So again, he's made this huge, drastic difference. But my point is simple. He's not going to make a bigger impact than in the admissions office. And let me explain. So there's this thing called the Flutie effect. You might have heard about it now. Doug Flutie was a quarterback at Boston College, and he threw a Hail Mary that was completed in 1984 that basically captivated the attention of the entire country. It was all over the papers. It was talked about on the radio, TV, etc. And what Boston College saw the year after was a 30% jump in applications. So the idea is that athletic success leads to an increase in interest, which leads to more applications for your school, and the enrollment can increase. And there's no better example of this than Nick Saban. There's two that we've seen in the past that are like, okay, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. One is Cam Newton, Auburn. They saw a 13% jump in applications after he led them to a national championship in 2011. Florida Gulf Coast saw a 27% increase in applications after their March Madness run in 2013. But again, no better example than Nick Saban and Alabama. Now, when Nick Saban got to Alabama in 2007, a smaller portion of their school was out-of-state students. It was more in-state students than out-of-state students. And that has completely flipped over the last 13 or 15 years. They've added about 10,000 out-of-state students than they had before. And enrollment has drastically increased too. If you look at enrollment for the school, they've added a total of about 25,000 students. They now have 40,000 students. That's a 60% jump in number of students and enrollment compared to the 10% average for all other U.S. public colleges throughout the country. So they not only added a bunch of students, but the composition of these students is important. They've added out-of-state students. And why is that important? It's important because they pay 3 times more in tuition than in-state students. So in-state students at Alabama pay $10,000 in tuition. Out-of-state students pay over $30,000 in tuition. So if you look at the chart that I have here, it's crisscross. Now there's more out-of-state students than there are in-state students, and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars off these students every single year. If you add it up over the tenure of his time at Alabama, and he has a contract till 2030. If you were to look over 20 years, this is worth billions of dollars to the University of Alabama. He's going to make like $200-300 million probably over the course of his career at Alabama. He's worth billions, just in enrollment fees alone, not to mention that this improves from a PR perspective the university too. As you get more applicants, you're able to be stricter with your process of letting people in. What does that do? That shows that you're a better academic institution too. It raises the quality of the students at your place. You get better graduates. They go on to get better jobs. They donate money to the university. It has an effect on everything. And if the social media numbers are any indication, this is already happening at Colorado. This is already happening. The social media growth is insane. People are going to the games. Merch sales are up. More people are interested in the university and so forth. So if Deion Sanders can win games, put them on the national stage, get them recognition, get them on ESPN, potentially get them in the college football playoff or a Pac-12 title game, whatever it is. If he is successful on the field, this is going to be an amazing business deal for Colorado. They're paying him $30 million over 5 years. My guess is that ends up being a bargain. Even if he wins 7, 8, 9, 10 games a year, that's a tall task to bring a 1-11 team. He obviously can recruit really well. He has the transfer portal that's helping him. NIL collectives are assisting him as well. And I think it's going to happen. Look, he has the pedigree to be able to do this. And my guess is that this is one of the best hires, not only in Colorado history, but college football history from a dollars and cents perspective for what he's going to be able to do from an admission standpoint at Colorado. Again, you have to think outside the box. It's not just wins and losses. College football is a billion-dollar business. This is a huge deal. They are certainly not only thinking about wins and losses, they're thinking about applications, they're thinking about enrollment, and they're thinking about tuition fees. So don't be surprised if you're hearing about these numbers later on when the team starts winning games and everything increases. I hope you learned something new today. I certainly had a lot of fun researching some of these numbers. Alabama's not the only school that we've seen this happen. Colorado isn't the only school. Kentucky basketball, we've seen it. Auburn, we obviously seen it. Florida Gulf Coast, we saw it with Connecticut. We've seen it with a bunch of schools. But my guess is that this happens at Colorado too. All right, I hope everyone enjoys the weekend. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. The full episodes are on the Joe Pomp Show on Apple and Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. And then you could read the full newsletters at readhuddleup.com. I send this out to over 100,000 people 3 times a week. It's completely free. I just love the money and business behind sports, and I hope you guys are learning something too.